Good morning, everybody. It is about 7:40 almost this Thursday morning, May 19th. And for the past couple of days, folks, since Monday, and maybe even earlier than that, but I'm pretty sure since Monday, a lot of people have been talking about what's going on in the 225th anniversary issue of Sonic the Hedgehog from Archie Comics. You see, there's a lot of people out there, and I've mentioned this previously for the past few days on forums and here on YouTube. But the fact is, folks, there's a lot of people out there. Well, not a lot, but there are some people out there, I should say, that are hoping that what happens to Sally at the end of 225 is permanent. They're hoping that this happens because in their minds it opens the door up for Sonic to finally go with Amy. Now in others' minds it just opens up the door for Sonic to go back to being the way he was. Now let me throw a little bit of trivia at those people, or a little bit of something they may have overlooked. You see, what happened to Sally is unknown right now. We don't know if she was we don't know if she was shot. We don't know if we don't know if she did what many of us feel she did, and that's, when she saw the thing aimed right at her, that she just quickly ducked as fast as she could and it hit the goggles. We don't know that, folks. We don't know if she got affected by the, as one person calls it, the teleportation 0 hour wave that was set off by the Death Egg thanks to Eggman. We don't know that, folks. All we know is that she's in Genesis starting in June. So, to many, that might be a good sign. But then again, it may not be. However, like I was saying, Sally is not the only one affected by this, folks. In fact, I told Richard Kunta this in one of my forums, at the Sega forums, doing my reply to him, and I said it in a video 2 days ago. I told Richard that Sally's not the only one affected by this. You see, when Sega, according to one person that told me here on the YT, when Sega gave Ian the okay to do what he did for this issue, he was surprised. Now, I'm pretty sure when he said that he was surprised by the okay they gave him, it wasn't the okay to say, okay, go ahead and put Sally's life on the line, or go ahead and kill Sally off. No, it was the okay to literally wipe out everybody in that book, for this story. And usually Sega's not that okay about it. They're not really okay. And and some people will come out and say, hey, Sega really doesn't have no say in what happens in the book. Oh, they have more say than you think. According to some people, since around issue 70, which ironically was 155 issues ago, that for 155 issues, Sega has been mandating certain things not to happen and to happen. I mean, it took them almost a long time. I mean, when did Cream, let me give you an example. When did Cream the Rabbit debut in video games? Yeah, about 5 years ago, right? About 8 years ago? 7, 8 years, 9 years ago, something like that, right? And it took her just recently, as of last year, if you will, as of last year going into this year, for her to finally debut in the comics. The official Sonic the Hedgehog comics. Not the Sonic X comics, the official main continuity. It took her that long, along with Vanilla, to make their debut. Take a look at Rouge, ladies and gentlemen. Take a look at Rouge. She didn't arrive on the scene until when? Until when, folks? About the 100s? And she'd been around for since 2000, 2001. It took her only a few years. but she showed up. You see, folks, what I'm saying is that Sega does mandate what happens, but they also sometimes have to be talked into letting things happen. I'm pretty sure when Ian went and met with them and said, hey, look, this is what I got planned for the 225th issue and afterwards, they probably said, okay, but as long as you bring everybody back. And he said, no problem. They're probably going to come back. Maybe not one, but maybe he said, well, maybe one won't come back, but the rest will. And we don't know who that one is. A lot of people want to assume that that one could be Sally, but we don't know. I mean, people, we're going on assumption here. People are going on the assumption of two things they see in the final panels of 225. Broken goggles and a tiny little shadowy figure in the hallway. But we don't know what that shadowy figure is. We don't know, like I said before, we don't know if that's Sally's body. We don't know if it's wounded. We don't know if she's dead. We don't know. But you know, I want to talk about that, though, for a second. Let's say, ladies and gentlemen, let's say for the sake of argument, ladies and gentlemen, that Sally, that, you know, Ian does, as I mentioned in one post yesterday, does decide to pull the trigger. Let's say he does decide to pull the trigger on Sally and say, okay, I'm going to kill this character off. Let me kind of reassure you, Richard, and anybody else, Dark Fox over on some of the forums and everything, Tross on some of the forums. Let me assure you, and you know, anybody else that's probably a member here on YouTube as well as a member of those other forums, let me assure you of something, folks. Let me assure you of something. Just because Sally might die in one medium based on the franchise, which is the comics, it doesn't mean she's going to die completely. Let me give you an example. Take a look at the X-Men, if you will. The X-Men have a character that many compare Sally to. That's Jean Grey, a.k.a. the Phoenix. Now, in comic book realm, Phoenix has been dead multiple times and has remained dead for a while. Heck, in the third movie, she died. Am I right? In X-Men 3, she died. Now, here's the thing, though. In the cartoons, whether it's the original 1990s one, whether it's Evolution, whether it's Wolverine and the X-Men, she's been alive a majority of the time. She's been alive. Yeah, you might say, well, the Phoenix Saga at the end killed her. Temporarily, but she came back. You could say at the end of Dark Phoenix Saga killed her. Yes, but she was revived. You know, many people might say, oh, those are Disney deaths. That doesn't count. Now, true, that might be true, but the thing is, folks, despite that, just because she's dead in the comics doesn't mean she's completely dead in the franchise. I mean, you take a look at Marvel vs. Capcom 3, she's in that one as a fighter, as someone you can play as. What I'm saying, folks, is just because a character dies in one medium, majority of the time being comics, if that medium is adapted into a television show, whether it's animated or live action, or even a movie, animated or live action, almost 90% or 75 or 80% of the time, 75 to 80% of the time, that character is alive. I mean, I'll tell you this. If they do end up killing, if Ian does decide, hey, I'm going to kill Sally off. I mean, I like the character and everything, but I'm going to kill her off. Even if he decides to do it, folks, she's still alive in the cartoon. She's still alive in the comics that have come before. and she's still alive on pages like DeviantArt and everything. She's not completely dead. I mean, I guarantee you, if he's gonna do a 20 issue story arc up to 250, starting with 230, if he's gonna do something like that, I guarantee you this: fans are gonna be watching every episode of Sonic Sat AM from that day forward. From that day forward. Every month, every day they get an issue, if they're a subscriber or they just buy it from a comic shop or wherever, they're going to put on that DVD to get their Sally fix, if you will, to get their satisfaction of seeing Sally along with Sonic. But now that brings me to something else, folks. That brings me to something else. Folks. Let me explain. You see, folks, I mentioned earlier, or I just briefly mentioned places like DeviantArt, right? Do you not think Ian Flynn knows about that? Ian Flynn has a page on DeviantArt himself. So does Tracy Yardlin. So does Patrick Spaz Pacini, or whatever you want to call him. They all have pages on DeviantArt. Do you not think Ian Flynn doesn't see and hear about the Sonic Sally, the Sat AM Forever clubs and groups that are put together there? Do you think he doesn't know about that? He does. And when you think about it, Ian counts that as a major part of the fan base that's in favor of Sonic and Sally and of Sally, period. Because there's also Sally fan clubs there and groups. Do you not think for an instant, I mean, he even said it on his own board, before he banned me again. He even said it on his own board. He said this. He said he's been looking at all the forums. He's been looking at a lot of the forums. Now, true, there's maybe one or two, or maybe 1.5, like one forum and maybe half of other forum that may be against Sally, but all the other forums he sees are in favor of her and Sonic. So you know that by visiting those, reading what people are talking about, that he's going to basically be jotting down all the notes and realize, you know what? This character is very popular. You know, one person said that if Ian was to try to pull the trigger on Sally and kill her, that would cause Archie Comics to lose money because the majority of the readership for that comic book are those that have been with the franchise not only since the beginning, but since the days of Sat AM. Heck, it was through Sonic Sat AM, if you think about it, that a lot of fans, including myself, were introduced to the comic book in the first place. And think about it this way, folks. Think about it another way. If Ian pulls the trigger, again, like I said, people will still have the fix and still have the Sally fix because of the box set and Sat AM and DeviantArt and things like that. But think of it like this, folks. Why would he want to kill a character that's in one of the most popular animated cartoons based on a video game ever? Why would he do that? The only characters that he's ever killed, as far as I know, are those that have never even been on the cartoon. That's the whole thing, folks. He's killed characters that haven't even been on the cartoon. So give him a little credit there, whether you like the guy or not. He hasn't gone to that extreme yet. He hasn't gone to that extreme, folks. But again, I know there are some fans out there that are hoping that he pulls the trigger and Sally gets killed. Again, I can understand that because a lot of people don't like the character. Well, folks, whether he pulls the trigger or not, things will change. We know that. But you see, there's a reason why he's pulling the trigger. You see, he says it in his Newsarama interview. And you people at the Bumble King forums that are here on YouTube, you can ask him this yourself. If he even lets you ask it, he'll tell you straight out what he's told them. And that is, he's trying to make things more simpler. He's trying to make things more straightforward, not so jumbled together. I mean, I'm pretty sure he'll tell somebody if they ask a question, how simple it's going to be. He'll probably tell them, well, I'm not going to just make a comic where it's Sonic frees animals, beats Robotnik, and that's the end. That's not going to happen, folks. You see, a comic book needs substance. It needs substance. Think about it this way, folks. When Sonic X was released as an anime, when Sonic X came out, they could have easily just had Sonic and his friends fighting Robotnik all the time, right? But what did they do? They took him, they brought him supposedly to our world at Station Square. They had him befriend the most annoying human character, as far as I'm concerned, in Chris Thorndike. And his family and his friends, they made him expand there. So, folks, think about it. Just because you want something done a certain way doesn't mean it's going to be done that way. You need substance. You need expansion. You need depth. You need actual stories. You need things to go beyond what you are experienced with. I mean, everybody, including Ian, including Paul Kaminsky, Tracy Yardlin, and all of them, they all acknowledge, folks, that fans out there, newer readers, are introduced to the comic through the games, and that they're more used to seeing what they see in the games, and they want to see that in the comics. That might be true, folks, but it's not. You see, here's the thing. If that was the case, then Genesis would be based more on the actual games and not include the Freedom Fighters, as it's going to, than it is based on anything else. What I'm saying, folks, is, if Ian wanted to do things in a way that would give game fans what they wanted, then I'm not trying to be mean here or anything, folks, but that would be totally biased. It would be dull. Again, though, getting back to my point, him doing what he's done in 225 doesn't mean he's killed Sally. Because if he's gotten the okay, which surprised him by Sega, to do this, that means he didn't just get the okay to kill Sally. He got the okay to do what he did by killing everybody with this Death Egg 0-hour wave teleportation deal. And again, folks, it goes back to what I said, though, that what I believe is going to occur afterwards, after Genesis, probably in 230, maybe afterwards. And what that is, folks, is I feel Eggman is going to lose this battle. We all know that. Yeah, he may achieve victory by changing some things, but according to what Ian has said and acknowledged in the Newsarama interview, not much will be affected. Maybe some things, and people coming back will be a surprise. And I'm pretty sure he'll be bringing back some of the most popular characters. But still, what I'm saying, folks, is this. Just because we want things done a certain way doesn't mean we're always going to get them. But what I'm saying, folks, too, is like I said, it goes back to what I mentioned yesterday, and I mentioned this on the forums. A few things are going to happen. And I believe one of them down the line, after Genesis and probably around 230 or after, is Dr. Eggman. You mean, come on, honestly. Okay, come on, honestly. Tell me this. Do you think Eggman going insane and then gaining his senses, do you not think Ian is going to just ignore him going insane like he made him go and not go back in that direction? He is. He's going to do that again, folks. You could already see it. You can already see it. So, anyway, what I feel is going to happen afterwards, in the aftermath of all this, is Eggman's going to lose. Feist is going to come and show up, probably take the Blue Emerald back. Down the line, the Zone Cop, Zonic's going to show up, probably help restore things, and then probably finally, and I'm not saying it would happen, arrest Dr. Eggman and say, you know what, Sonic? And probably acknowledge the fact that Sonic was right. You should have left Scourge with them and just arrested Eggman. So, but folks, that's just my take on it. You know, just my take. And getting back to what I was saying at the beginning, just because we might, we're not totally 100% sure because we're going on an assumption from what we see, from that little shadowy figure to the broken goggles. Ladies and gentlemen, and I'm sorry for the pause there, ladies and gentlemen, what we have to realize is this. Just because a character might die in one medium of the which is based on the franchise, doesn't mean they'll be dead completely in another. And you also have to acknowledge that Ian is looking all around, and he's seeing what a majority of the fan base is, in favor of. But will he go in that favor, or will he throw that curveball at us and pull the trigger? That's all I'm going to say, folks. Give me your thoughts below, and I'll talk to you later.